In the heart of the whispering woods, where the trees swayed like they were humming lullabies to the stars, there stood a very special treehouse. It wasn't just any treehouse, it was a treehouse library, perched high among the branches of an ancient oak whose leaves glowed faintly under the silver moonlight. A little rope ladder swayed gently in the cool night breeze, leading up to a warm, golden glow that promised soft whispers, cozy blankets, and stories that floated like feathers through the night air. Please subscribe to our channel and tell me in comments from where are you watching this video. Inside the treehouse, tiny lanterns shaped like fireflies drifted lazily, their light flickering in time with the quiet crackle of a little fireplace. Shelves carved into the walls were lined with hundreds of storybooks, their spines shimmering in soft colors as if they held magic waiting to be read. A big, fluffy armchair sat near the window, surrounded by pillows and patchwork quilts, inviting anyone who climbed up to curl inside and get lost in a gentle story before sleep. Tonight, the treehouse was especially peaceful. The only sounds were the faint rustle of leaves, the sleepy hum of crickets below, and the occasional flutter of a real firefly peeking in through the open window. The air smelled of warm vanilla and pine, with just a hint of honey, making the whole place feel like a dream woven from comfort itself. In the middle of the treehouse sat a small group of friends, each curled up with their own blanket. There was Maple the squirrel, her fluffy tail wrapped like a scarf around her shoulders, clutching a tiny acorn-shaped book. Next to her, Poppy the panda hugged a cloud pillow under her chin, her eyes already heavy with sleepiness. A shy little owl named Finley perched on the arm of the chair, blinking slowly and letting out the quietest hoots as he turned the pages of a glowing storybook. Outside, the moon hung low, spilling silver light through the windows. The stars twinkled as if they, too, were settling in to listen. Fireflies gathered near the branches, their glow adding tiny sparkles of magic to the night. Everything about the treehouse library felt safe, warm, and ready for the quietest adventure of all, a night of stories that would lull every little dreamer into the sweetest, deepest sleep. Finley the little owl fluttered down from his perch, the glowing storybook balanced carefully in his talons. His voice was soft and hushed, like a breeze rustling through autumn leaves. "Shall we start with a story that makes dreams float like feathers?" he asked, his big round eyes shining warmly. Maple and Poppy nodded sleepily, snuggling deeper under their blankets, while the fireflies drifted closer, their tiny lights blinking in anticipation. Finley opened the storybook, and a soft golden glow spilled out, filling the treehouse with warmth and a faint scent of lavender and honey tea. The pages shimmered with starlight as he began to read, his words floating slowly through the air like gentle music. The story was about a little mouse named Willow who built a raft from fallen petals and sailed down a river made of moonlight. As Finley spoke, it almost felt like the treehouse itself was drifting on that very river, swaying gently, carrying everyone closer to dreamland. Outside the windows, the forest joined in the quiet magic. Fireflies gathered in clusters, glowing like tiny lanterns, painting swirls of light in the cool night air. The branches of the old oak creaked softly, not in fright but like a lullaby sung by a tree older than time itself. Every sound was gentle, the soft tap of a moth's wings on the window, the distant hoot of another owl far away, the occasional sigh of the breeze carrying the scent of sweet flowers. Poppy rested her head on her cloud pillow, eyes half closed, listening to every word. She imagined Willow the mouse gliding under star bridges, passing glowing lilies that whispered goodnight to the river. Each picture painted by Finley's voice made her feel lighter, sleepier, as though she were floating right there with Willow, wrapped in starlight and safe from the world. Maple gave a tiny yawn, her fluffy tail twitching as she hugged her acorn book closer. "It feels like we're inside a dream already," she murmured softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Finley smiled gently, turning another glowing page as he continued the tale. The treehouse seemed to glow brighter, yet softer, as the story went on. The fireflies moved closer to the window ledges, as though they wanted to hear every word too. One landed on Poppy's paw, its light pulsing in time with her slow, sleepy breaths. She smiled drowsily and whispered a tiny hello before closing her eyes again, letting the warmth of the treehouse and the hush of the story wrap around her like the coziest blanket. And as Finley's voice floated on, the night outside seemed to lean in closer, holding its breath, keeping the whole forest still and safe so that the sleepy treehouse could keep its promise, that tonight would be made only of kindness, warmth, and the softest dreams waiting just beyond the last page of a bedtime tale. Finley's soft voice filled the treehouse like a lullaby wrapped in starlight, each word drifting slowly through the air and settling gently in every sleepy heart. The pages of the glowing storybook seemed to breathe, their light flickering like candle flames, casting dreamy patterns on the walls made of polished oak. The entire treehouse felt alive, swaying softly in the breeze, as if it too was leaning closer to listen. Willow the mouse's moonlit journey continued, and the pictures painted by Finley's words felt so real that Poppy could almost see them outside the treehouse window. In her mind, she followed Willow's tiny raft made of petals, gliding down a silver river where the water hummed lullabies. The riverbanks were lined with flowers that glowed softly, bowing their heads to whisper sleepy wishes as she passed. Above the water, stars dangled on invisible threads, swaying gently, lighting the path ahead with kindness. Maple the squirrel curled up tighter in her blanket, her little nose twitching as if she could smell the sweet apple pies Willow was promised at the end of her journey. Her bushy tail twitched in slow, sleepy movements, wrapping around her like a second blanket. Poppy shifted closer to her friends, the cloud pillow under her chin making everything feel light and safe. She let her big panda eyes drift closed for a moment, opening them only when a soft giggle from a firefly brushed against her ears like a tickle of light. Finley's eyes drooped halfway, his own voice growing slower and softer. As though even he was being pulled into the dream he was reading aloud. The words painted pictures of a moonlit bridge made of glass, where Willow met a family of kind snails who offered her tea brewed from night blossoms. They spoke in whispers and smiles, moving so slowly that time itself seemed to yawn and stretch around them, giving everyone more moments to rest. As Finley described this, the treehouse itself seemed to slow its swaying, settling into an even calmer rhythm, as though it, too, was sipping the snail's tea. A faint breeze drifted through the open window, carrying the cool scent of pine and evening rain. It made the firefly lanterns sway lazily, spreading their glow across the ceiling where it looked as if little galaxies were spinning gently above their heads. The outside world was wrapped in a hush, the kind of quiet that felt soft and safe, as if every creature in the forest had tucked themselves into bed just to share this peaceful night. Poppy sighed happily, sinking deeper into her blanket. She imagined Willow floating further down the river, where waterfalls whispered lullabies and bridges glowed like dream rainbows. The thought made her paws tingle in a lovely, sleepy way, like she was floating right there on the raft, her heart light as a feather. Maple spoke in a tiny, drowsy murmur, "Do you think Willow found her dream home yet?" Her eyes stayed closed as she asked, a little smile on her lips. Finley's voice was barely above a whisper now, like a secret meant only for the quiet night. "She's almost there," he said softly, turning a glowing page that rustled like a sigh. "Every gentle journey leads to warmth and love, just like ours tonight." His words floated in the air for a long moment, making even the treehouse walls seem to hum in agreement. The fireflies outside had gathered in hundreds now, drifting closer to the treehouse balcony. They made soft spirals of light, turning the tree into a beacon of calm in the forest. The soft flicker of their glow seemed to merge with the starlight above, blurring the line between the earth and the sky, making it feel as though the treehouse was floating in a quiet sea of dreams. Finley read on, each word slower than the last, his feathers fluffing as sleep tugged at him too. The story described Willow finding a meadow at the end of her journey, where soft grass smelled like warm vanilla, where tiny houses made of seashells hummed bedtime tunes. There were pillows made from clouds and blankets spun from moonbeams, waiting for every little traveler who needed rest. The description made every listener in the treehouse snuggle closer into their own cozy corners, hearts full of the gentle promise that dreams would always lead to a safe and loving place. As the story drew nearer to its close, Even the glowing book seemed to dim its light a little, as though it knew bedtime was near. Poppy's breaths were slow and deep now, each one carrying her closer to sleep. Maple's tiny snores were soft as the flutter of moth wings, and the fireflies outside twinkled more slowly, their own lights sleepily dipping and swaying. Finley turned the last page, his voice now only a faint murmur. "And Willow curled up in her dream home," he said, wrapped in a blanket of moonlight, safe and warm, as the river sang her to sleep. He closed the book gently, setting it on a nearby shelf where it glowed faintly like a firefly settling into its nest. The treehouse seemed to sigh in contentment. The fire crackled softly, the leaves outside rustled like lullabies, and the moon painted the walls in silver light. No one spoke. There was no need. The whole world had slowed into stillness, holding everyone in the softest embrace of peace and love, making it feel like this night, and this dream, could last forever. The treehouse swayed gently in the night breeze, its wooden beams creaking softly like an old friend humming a lullaby. The storybook on the shelf glowed faintly, its magic lingering in the air even after Finley's last whispered words had faded. Everything was wrapped in a hush so cozy and deep that it felt as if the entire forest had fallen under a dream spell. Poppy shifted under her blanket, her soft panda fur brushing against the quilt stitched with tiny stars. She let out a slow sigh of happiness, her eyelids heavy but unwilling to close just yet. She didn't want the night to end. The warmth of the fire, the glow of the fireflies outside, and the quiet company of her friends made the treehouse feel like a little pocket of magic floating high above the world. Finley fluttered up to his perch again, his feathers puffed out in contentment. "One story isn't always enough for a night like this," he murmured softly, his voice low and soothing, as if he didn't want to disturb the peaceful air. He reached for another book, this one bound in soft green velvet with golden lettering that shimmered like moonlight on water. The book floated from the shelf into his talons as though it, too, wanted to be part of the sleepy magic tonight. Maple stirred and opened one eye, her tail twitching slowly. "Just one more?" she asked in a tiny, hopeful whisper. Poppy nodded drowsily beside her, hugging her cloud pillow tighter. Even the fireflies outside seemed to hover closer to the windows, their soft lights blinking in eager agreement. Finley opened the book, and the pages released a delicate fragrance of wildflowers and evening rain. He began to read in a tone even softer than before, his words trickling into the room like raindrops on a windowpane. This story was about a little fox named Sol who collected forgotten wishes that floated in the night air. Sol would gather them gently in a woven basket and carry them to the Dreamkeeper's tree, where each wish would bloom into a glowing flower that sang lullabies to anyone who needed them. As Finley spoke, the magic in the treehouse seemed to thicken, wrapping everyone in a deeper stillness. The lanterns flickered lower, casting warm, golden pools of light that swayed across the wooden floor. The sound of the fire crackling softly mixed with the quiet rustle of leaves outside, creating a rhythm that made every listener's heartbeat slow in time. Poppy imagined herself walking beside Sol the fox, helping him gather wishes shaped like tiny stars that whispered secrets of hope and happiness. She pictured the Dreamkeeper's tree towering in a field of glowing grass, its branches heavy with blossoms that hummed the softest melodies. The thought made her smile in her sleepiness, her paw curling tighter around her pillow as she nestled closer to Maple. Maple yawned, her eyelids drooping again, the story carrying her into that hazy space between waking and dreaming. Luna the kitten, who had curled in a little ball by the window ledge, let out a quiet purr, her tiny chest rising and falling with every slow breath as she drifted deeper into slumber. Even Finley's reading grew slower, his eyes blinking heavily, his voice dipping lower with every sentence until it felt like a lullaby more than a story. The fireflies floated through the open window now, drifting gently around the room, their glow soft and comforting. They made lazy spirals above Poppy's head, a tiny trail of golden light settling on her blanket like stardust. The treehouse walls seemed to shimmer faintly, as if they were breathing along with every sleeping creature inside. The story reached its end with Soul placing the last glowing wish on the Dreamkeeper's tree, watching it bloom into a radiant flower that sang a song only hearts could hear. Finley closed the book with the quietest thump, his feathers fluffed like a pillow, his eyes half closed as he placed it back on the shelf where it dimmed to a gentle glow. Every wish finds its home, he whispered sleepily, and every dream finds its dreamer. Silence settled again, deeper than before. The only sounds were the slow breaths of Maple, Poppy, and Luna, the faint hum of the fireflies, and the distant, soft song of the forest night. The moon's light draped over them like a soft blanket, spilling through the window in silver beams, turning the little treehouse into a nest of warmth and safety. Poppy finally let her eyes close, a sleepy smile on her face as she slipped closer to dreamland. She imagined Soul's blossoms glowing above her, Finley's gentle voice weaving through her dreams, and Maple's warmth beside her like an anchor in the quiet night sky. She knew that even when morning came, this moment, the sleepy treehouse, the glowing fireflies, the soft stories, would stay with her heart forever, keeping every night safe and kind. And as the fire crackled softly and the treehouse swayed like a cradle, it felt as if the whole world outside had curled up around them, guarding their sleep, making sure every dream tonight would be the sweetest one yet. The night deepened around the treehouse library, the stars high above glowing brighter as if they were keeping watch over every dreamer nestled inside. The forest had fallen completely silent except for the occasional whisper of leaves brushing against one another, a soft shhh sound that felt like nature telling bedtime stories of its own. The little lanterns shaped like fireflies hovered low now, their glow pulsing lazily as if they were getting sleepy too. Everything inside the treehouse felt perfectly still and safe, wrapped in warmth, as if the entire world had paused just to let the magic of this night last a little longer. Poppy stirred slightly under her blanket, eyes fluttering open halfway. She didn't wake because she wasn't comfortable, oh no, she was too comfortable, floating on that cozy edge between awake and dreaming, where every breath felt like a soft lullaby. Maple shifted beside her, curling tighter in her quilt, her fluffy tail draped over her nose. Finley perched with his head tucked under one wing on the back of the chair, his feathers rising and falling with slow, steady breaths. Luna the kitten let out a quiet purr from the window ledge, twitching her tiny paws like she was chasing dreams in her sleep. But something gentle stirred in the air, a faint sound like bells far away, carried on the night breeze. Poppy opened her eyes just enough to see a soft golden glow gathering outside the window. She pushed her blanket back and tiptoed carefully across the wooden floor, making no sound on the soft rug. When she peeked outside, she gasped in delight. The entire clearing around the treehouse was alive with light. Thousands of fireflies had gathered, their glow weaving slow, dreamy patterns through the branches. The air shimmered as they floated in spirals, forming shapes of stars and moons that pulsed softly like sleepy heartbeats. They drifted upward, lighting the great oak tree like a lantern that reached all the way to the sky. The forest floor below glowed faintly, bathed in a magical warmth that made everything look like a dream painted in golden light. The faint chiming sound came again, this time closer. And Poppy spotted where it came from, little wind chimes made of silver star shells hanging from nearby branches, swaying gently in the breeze. The sound was soft, almost like a whisper, and it made her heart feel light, calm, and very, very sleepy. She tiptoed back to her blanket and nudged Maple softly awake. "Come look," she whispered, her voice no louder than the flutter of a moth's wing. Maple blinked drowsily but followed, and together they pressed their little paws to the window frame, staring out in wonder. Luna stretched and padded over too, her whiskers twitching as she tried to catch the glow of the nearest firefly through the glass. Finley stirred and blinked his big round eyes open. "What's happening?" he murmured sleepily, hopping down to join his friends. When he saw the forest glowing like a starlit sea, a smile spread across his beak. "Ah," he whispered, his feathers fluffing happily. "It's the firefly parade. They only do this on the quietest nights." when every heart nearby is full of good dreams. The little friends couldn't resist. Carefully, quietly, they unlatched the treehouse door and padded out onto the wooden balcony, wrapped in their quilts like tiny capes. The night air was cool and carried the sweet scent of blooming jasmine and fresh pine needles. The fireflies floated closer, swirling around them like ribbons of soft light, brushing their cheeks and paws with tiny kisses of warmth. None of them spoke for a long while. They simply stood together, leaning on the balcony rail, watching the fireflies dance. Some floated high above, forming sparkling arches that looked like doorways to dreamlands far away. Others hovered low, making little glowing puddles of light on the leaves and grass below. It felt as if the whole forest was awake and dreaming alongside them, weaving stories too quiet for words. Finley whispered softly, "Every firefly carries a story they've seen in the world. Tonight, they're sharing them with us." The thought made Poppy's heart swell with warmth. She imagined each light holding a memory of kindness, of friendship, of someone safe and loved drifting off to sleep under the same stars. Maple leaned her head on Poppy's shoulder, eyes half closed, and sighed happily. "It feels like the whole forest is cuddling us," she murmured. Luna mewed softly in agreement, pressing against their legs for warmth. After a while, the fireflies began to slow their dance, drifting in closer circles as their glow softened. The wind chimes sang one last sleepy note, as if to say goodnight. One by one, fireflies landed on the balcony railings, glowing faintly like tiny lanterns left behind just for the friends. The hush of the forest deepened again, softer than ever, ready to hold every creature in its arms for the rest of the night. Finley guided them back inside, his feathers brushing gently against their faces as he whispered, "Time for dreams now, little ones. The night has shared its stories, and the treehouse will keep them safe until morning." Poppy, Maple, and Luna padded sleepily back to their cozy nests of blankets. The fire crackled softly, the lanterns flickered low, and the glowing fireflies outside formed a halo around the treehouse, promising warmth and protection all night long. As Poppy curled up under her quilt, her eyelids drooping, she thought about the stories floating in the air, the ones told by books, and the ones carried by fireflies. She imagined them wrapping around her like threads of light, weaving a dream where every heart felt safe, loved, and held gently by the night. With a long, slow sigh, she snuggled closer to her friends, knowing that whatever dream came next would be sweeter than any story they'd heard so far. The treehouse was now the sleepiest place in the whole forest. The fire had quieted to a soft glow, its warmth spreading gently across the wooden floor like a cozy hug. Outside, the fireflies floated lazily in small, glowing clusters, as if they were keeping watch over their tiny friends inside. The moon had drifted lower in the sky, wrapping the whole treetop world in a silver blanket of calm. Poppy snuggled deeper into her quilt, her paw resting lightly on Maple's tail, while Luna curled on top of Poppy's cloud pillow, purring in her dreams. Finley perched on the chair's arm, his feathers puffed up like a downy cushion, and his big eyes blinked slowly, fighting sleep. But even he couldn't resist the hush that had settled over the treehouse, pulling everyone closer to slumber. The little lanterns floating near the ceiling began to dim, their glow softening to the faintest flickers, just enough to make the room feel like it was glowing from within. A faint breeze drifted through the open window, carrying the scent of pine, wildflowers, and warm night air, mixing with the lingering sweetness of the fire's wood smoke. It made the entire room feel like a cradle swaying gently in the arms of the forest. Poppy stirred just once more, her big panda eyes opening halfway. "Finley," she whispered softly, her voice a sleepy murmur, "will there be more stories tomorrow night?" Finley let out the softest chuckle, his beak curving in a sleepy smile. "There will always be stories," he said, his voice barely louder than the rustle of leaves outside. "Stories never run out. They live in the trees, in the fireflies, in every star above us. We'll read them together whenever the night calls for dreams." Poppy smiled, her heart warm, her eyelids fluttering closed again. Maple let out a small, happy sigh, cuddling closer, her acorn book still resting beside her paw. Even Luna twitched her tiny ears as if she'd heard Finley's promise in her dreams. And a soft purr rumbled from her tiny chest. Outside, the fireflies formed a circle around the treehouse, their lights rising and falling like sleepy breathing. From somewhere deeper in the woods came a lullaby sung by the wind, carrying words too soft to understand but so full of comfort that every creature listening felt safe. The ancient oak creaked gently, swaying just enough to make the treehouse rock ever so slightly, like a cradle made of branches and stars. Moments passed like feathers floating in the air, slow, quiet, weightless. Every sound inside blended into a perfect harmony of sleep, the tiny snores of Maple, the rhythmic purr of Luna, the quiet hum of Finley's feathers as he shifted, the soft rustle of Poppy's blanket as she curled tighter in it. Even the little fire crackling in the hearth seemed to breathe softly now. As if it, too, had drifted halfway into dreamland. Above them, the stars winked slowly, one by one. As if blessing the little library in the tree. They sent down invisible threads of dream dust that slipped through the roof, curling around each friend like invisible hugs. Dreams bloomed behind sleepy eyelids, Poppy floating on a raft made of clouds through a cotton candy sky, Maple climbing endless trees filled with sweet acorn pies, Luna flying on the back of a friendly firefly through glowing meadows. And Finley reading stories to an audience of twinkling stars that clapped softly in delight. The night outside settled even deeper. As if it wanted to keep these dreams safe forever. The treehouse swayed one last time. As though the ancient oak had pulled the little library closer to its heart. No one inside moved anymore. They were wrapped in the purest stillness, the kind only a night full of love and warmth could bring. Hours slipped by quietly, the moon slowly giving way to the faint glow of dawn. But even as the first hint of morning painted the sky with pale pink and soft gold, the treehouse remained hushed and magical. The fireflies lingered around the balcony, protecting the sleeping friends like tiny glowing guardians. The air stayed warm and gentle, whispering promises of more nights like this, more stories waiting to be told, more dreams waiting to bloom. And as the sun peeked over the horizon, spilling light over the whispering woods, it touched the treehouse softly. As if not wanting to wake it just yet. Inside, Poppy, Maple, Luna, and Finley stayed nestled in their blankets, their faces calm and full of quiet happiness, knowing that they were loved, safe, and surrounded by magic that would never fade. The Sleepy Treehouse Library would wait for the next night, for the next story, for the next firefly parade. And every evening, as the stars twinkled awake, it would open its doors again, ready to wrap little dreamers in warmth and wonder, promising that bedtime would always be filled with cozy tales, glowing fireflies, as the sweetest dreams imaginable. Please subscribe to our channel and tell me in comments from where are you watching this video.